I think the American people can be pretty mature if they have leadership. In World War II, American journalists were patriots first. They didn't run around prattling about lawyer rights. Andrew Jackson had a pretty clear-cut idea about America's enemies. Killed them.
Would you sign that death warrant for an American citizen overseas who you believe is a terrorist suspect?
Well, he's not a terrorist suspect. He's a person who was found guilty under review of actively seeking the death of Americans.
Not found guilty by a court, sir.
He was found guilty by a panel that looked at it and reported to the president.
Well, that's extrajudicial. It's not the rule of law.
It is the rule of law. That is explicitly false. It is the rule of law. No. If you engage in war against the United States, you are an enemy combatant. You have none of the civil liberties of the United States. You cannot go to court.
There was not a panel that determined Awlaki's guilt. There is a roughly 50-page memorandum by the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel. It was completed around June of 2010. And that memo was written not by a panel, but by two lawyers, David Barron and Martin Lederman. The legal analysis that those two lawyers provided concluded that Awlaki could be legally killed. It did not independently analyze the quality of the evidence against him. The Post goes on to say there is no evidence that a review took place that found him guilty in any meaningful, constitutional, or legal sense.
The WikiLeaks guy should be in jail for the rest of his life. He is an enemy of the United States, actively endangering people, and he's going to get a lot of folks killed. And I think that's a despicable act, and we should treat him as an enemy combatant and as an absolute enemy of the United States. Information warfare is warfare, and Julian Assange is engaged in warfare. Information terrorism, which leads to people getting killed, is terrorism, and Julian Assange is engaged in terrorism. He should be treated as an enemy combatant. WikiLeaks should be closed down permanently and decisively.
It's not in the public interest to know that we're killing people in Yemen. It's not in the public interest to know that Hillary Clinton dispatched agents to steal the credit card numbers of foreign diplomats?
No.
Okay.
We're in the middle of a war. The challenge is to explain candidly to the American people how much bigger the larger war with the irreconcilable wing of Islam is, and that Iraq is a very small part of that, just as Afghanistan is a very small part of it. And I think the American people can be pretty mature if they have leadership. Maximum covert operations to block and disrupt the Iranian program, including taking out their scientists, including breaking up their systems, all of it covertly, all of it deniable. In the end, despite all of those things, the dictatorship persists. You have to take whatever steps are necessary to break its capacity to have a nuclear weapon. Waterboarding is, by every technical rule, not torture. A prisoner could only be waterboarded at the direction of the president in a circumstance where the information was of such great importance that we thought it was worth the risk of doing it. All of us will be in danger for the rest of our lives. The more successful they've been at intercepting and stopping bad guys, the less proof there is that we're in danger. And therefore, the better they've done at making sure there isn't an attack, the easier it is to say, well, there was never going to be an attack anyway. And it's almost like they should every once in a while have allowed an attack to get through just to remind us. But I mean, think about the psychology.
Speaker, just to clarify, you wouldn't change the Patriot Act?
No, I would not change it. I'm not aware of any specific change it needs, and I'd look at strengthening it because I think the dangers are literally that great. You start thinking about one nuclear weapon in one American city and the scale of loss of life, and you ask yourself, what should the president be capable of doing to stop that? And you come up with a very different answer. Again, very sharp division. Criminal law, the government should be, frankly, on defense, and you're innocent until proven guilty. National security, the government should have many more tools in order to save our lives. I don't want a law that says, after we lose a major American city, we're sure going to come and find you. I want a law that says, you try to take out an American city, we're going to stop you.
He believes that you are a stunningly dangerous candidate.
I don't want to ever fight a war that's unconstitutional, and I'm the dangerous person. You know, when Newt Gingrich was called to service in the 1960s, during the Vietnam era, guess what he thought about danger? He chickened out on that. He got deferments, didn't even go. So right now, he sends these young kids over there to endure the danger. So Newt Gingrich has no business talking about danger because he's putting other people in danger. Some people call that kind of a program a chicken hawk, and I think he falls into that category.
Imagine a Cuban Spring. And I would argue that we should have as a stated explicit policy that we want to facilitate the transition from the dictatorship to freedom. And I think that we've had an invented Palestinian people who are in fact Arabs and were historically part of the Arab community. These people are terrorists. They teach terrorism in their schools. They have textbooks that say if there are 13 Jews and 9 Jews are killed, how many Jews are left? We pay for those textbooks through our aid money. It's fundamentally time for somebody to have the guts to stand up and say, enough lying about the Middle East.
Governor Romney.
What would you do about Libya?
Exercise a no-fly zone this evening. We don't need to have the United Nations. All we have to say is that we think that slaughtering your own citizens is unacceptable and that we're intervening. This is a moment to get rid of him. Do it. Get it over with. I would not have intervened. I think there were a lot of other ways to affect Gaddafi. I think there are a lot of allies in the region that we could have worked with. I would not have used American and European forces. Second, I personally would be opposed to legalization of marijuana, and I think that it is one of those passing fads that people don't think through the consequences. And I'd rather try to find a way to minimize American drug use, not find a way to legalize it and make it acceptable. It would start, for example, by saying that getting certain federal benefits means you get drug tested.
In 1997, he proposed the death penalty for possession of marijuana in excess of 2 ounces with intent to distribute it.
Is that true?
Oh,
yes, from overseas, yes. And when asked about his own marijuana use, this is in 1997, when asked about his own marijuana use, he said, well, when I did it, it was cool. But basically.
You're paraphrasing.
When I did it, it was
Proposing
cool,
the death penalty on the grounds
now,
that it's passé?
when I did it, it was cool, it was against the law, but now it's against the law and it's morally wrong. I
think Jefferson or George Washington would have rather strongly discouraged you from growing marijuana, and their techniques of dealing with it would have been rather more violent than the current government. Look, I think there is a gay and secular fascism in this country that wants to impose its will on the rest of us, is prepared to use violence, to use harassment. I think it is prepared to use the government if it can get control of it. I think that it is a very dangerous threat to anybody who believes in traditional religion. I am for people, individuals, exactly like automobile insurance, individuals having health insurance and being required to have health insurance.
But that is the individual mandate, is it not?
It's a variation on it. I do not support a mandate. I am opposed to Obamacare. I am in support of the 26 attorney generals who have filed suit. My message, I think, is that the evidence is sufficient that we should move towards the most effective possible steps to reduce carbon loading of the atmosphere.
And do it urgently, now.
Do it urgently, yes.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree our country must take action to address climate change.
We need cleaner forms of energy, and we need them fast.
If enough of us demand action from our leaders, we can spark the innovation we need. I think that the evidence is not complete, and I think that we're a long way from being able to translate a computer program into actual science. And I argue in contract with the Earth that because I'm a conservative in the traditional sense, which means avoiding stupid risks, I think we should lower the carbon impact on the planet.
But not what Paul Ryan is suggesting, which is completely changing Medicare.
I think that is too big a jump. I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering. I don't think imposing radical change from the right or the left is a very good way for a free society to operate. And if you want to put people in jail, I want to second what Michelle said. You ought to start with Barney Frank and Chris Dodd, and let's look at the politicians who created the environment, the politicians who profited from the environment, and the politicians who put this country in trouble.
He's been busy out there for Freddie Mac. Today, Bloomberg reported that Freddie Mac executives dispute Gingrich's assertion that he warned them about the bubble coming. According to Bloomberg, quote, none of the former Freddie Mac officials who spoke on condition of anonymity said Gingrich even raised the issue of the housing bubble or was critical of Freddie Mac's business model. Well, what was Gingrich paid to do? According to two former executives, quote, Gingrich was asked to build bridges to Capitol Hill Republicans and develop an argument on behalf of the company's public-private structure that would resonate with conservatives seeking to dismantle it. He was expected to provide written material that could be circulated among free market conservatives in Congress and outside organizations. Well, the price tag for his services, according to Bloomberg, was between $1.6 and $1.8 million over an 8-year span.
We will have the first permanent base on the moon, and it will be American. When we have 13,000 Americans living on the moon, they can petition to become a state. I wanted every young American to say to themselves, I could be one of those 13,000. I could be a pioneer.
He proposed the death penalty for potentially something that he had committed. I have troubles with that.
Pot smoking aside, I mean, and I'm not sure that's going to be the forefront on the mind of all Americans right now in terms of the, big malaise that we want to try to attack.